Hello, my name is Nicole Watson. I'm originally from Chinle, Arizona. I currently live in Chandler, Arizona. My plans are Kanagani Nishle, Kia Ani Bashishchin, Kia Ani Deshishche. I currently work for the Gila River Indian community as a community health nutritionist. So within our program, we do a lot of nutrition education with the schools, the programs, the departments. We work with kids, adults, elderly. And right now, our movement is kind of towards indigenous foods. We're trying to really get back to that previous lifestyle that we had because we know that's how we ultimately became healthy. And Tanisha and I, we actually both sit on a nutrition coalition within Gila River Indian community, and we're really huge on indigenous foods right now. We have done a lot of presentations, regular presentations, as well as food demonstrations where we're actually able to show them how to make some of these indigenous recipes.
Hello, my name is Tanisha Watson. I am the younger sister of Nicole here. Hanagani Ninchlin, Keen Ani Bashishi, Keen Ani Dashishe Dota, Chini Dashinale. We are originally from Chinle, Arizona, and I also work with Gila River Gila River Healthcare as a youth education coordinator. In this position, what I do is I work with youth from grades 2nd through 12, and I primarily do education on physical activity, nutrition, and diabetes prevention. My target group not only includes youth, but also families. Again, we do a lot of things, array of things such as um, demonstrations. We do presentations on different kind of topics. An example would be on how to read a food label. And again, we do sit on the Nutrition Coalition. We just started this Nutrition Coalition not long ago, but we're doing great things on it, and not only focus on nutrition, but also a well-being, wellness lifestyle. So we will be presenting on traditional foods and teachings, and during this time we will be discussing Navajo lifestyle pre and post settlers and the revitalization of traditional foods.
So pre-settlers. So what does pre-settlers mean? So pre-settlers was when the Spaniards came onto Navajo land or Indian country, Mexicans, Christopher Columbus. So prior to them, Native Americans were very healthy people, and they were very healthy people because we were very physically active and we had healthy eating diets. As far as physically active, we did a lot of the physical labor on our own. So for example, when we needed to go hunt for food, we walked or ran many miles to go hunt, to go look for our food. We all did that by foot. And then when we brought back the food, we used our hands to cook it. We didn't have stoves. We had a lot of makeshift cooking utensils that we had to make out of hand. Not only that, but then when we wanted to communicate with somebody, whether it was a relative or a friend, we had to walk many miles to go do that. We didn't have a cell phone, or we didn't have phones just to call them. We had to go actually walk and see them to communicate with them. So that's why we were very physically active throughout the whole day. We also had very good healthy eating habits. And when we say that, we consumed a lot of fresh foods, a lot of whole foods. And so one of the most popular diets we had as Native American people back then was our Three Sisters. And Three Sisters is pretty much known across Indian country, but Three Sisters, that includes our corn, our beans, and our squash. So those three foods, they had a lot of good healthy nutrients, essential nutrients that our bodies needed. They also had a lot of vitamins and minerals, which kept us very healthy. Not only that, we ate edible plants that Mother Earth provided for us. Again, that's when we went out and we hunted for that on our own. So being that we were very physically active and we had a pretty good eating habits, we tended to be very healthy, which meant we didn't have obesity, we didn't have diabetes, we didn't have diseases and cancers back then. We were free of all of that. We were just overall really healthy people. You know, we really took care of our bodies. Not only that, but Native American communities tend to be close-knit with their families. They tend to be family-oriented. And when you tend to be in a group like that, you have more support. You have more encouragement from your group of people. And so when you are a part of a group like that, you tend to all make health, you tend to have you tend to make your habits you do are going to be all together. You know, you're gonna do it as a group. So therefore, everybody ate healthy. Everybody was constantly being physically active as a whole, and kind of, you know, and that's kind of what led to healthier lifestyles for Native Americans.
Being Native American, you're taught a whole bunch of teachings and your culture, and all tied in with this. You know, you grow up coming from generation to generation. You're taught how important it is to be physically active and how important it is to take care of your body overall. So when we're for physical activity, you know, as Navajo, it's common to hear from our elderly to get up early and not to be lazy and to go run toward the sun. And we use that as a form of prayer. Nutrition as well, we had to take care of our bodies. Again, we used our food. Our food was holy and our food was sacred. So those things tied into our healthy lifestyle overall. So the next part of this presentation, we'll discuss settlers' arrival. As far as settlers' arrival for the Navajos, we could think of this at the time as a long walk. During the long walk, there were a lot of changes made. We were told to decrease our ways of life. Different things some things that we regularly did. Culture, we were told to decrease the practice of our culture. Not only that, but that included our foods and how we had our foods and what we did as a lifestyle. We couldn't grow our foods anymore. They took away the land for that. They took away many different things, but also they brought awareness to different things. And this led to the introduction of processed foods. So before we talk about that, I just kind of wanted to define what processed foods are. So processed foods are foods that are changed from their natural state. An example of this, we could think of an apple. So an apple comes from a tree, okay? So you have a tree, you go outside and you pick the apple. The apple is in its natural state right when you pick it from the tree. Now, if we were to have a processed apple, you would change that again from the natural state. What we could do is change that to apple pie. To do that, you would have to cut the apple, you're changing it, and then you bake it, and you're adding sugars. You're adding different things to it. Therefore, it's a processed food. So we had the introduction of processed foods, and you can, and in this whole case, we had the introduction of westernization. We had grocery stores, different kind of transportations, like discussed earlier. A main form of our communication or any kind of transportation was walking or to run to nearby locations. So we had transportation, we had commodity foods, the flour. It's really common for many to think that fry bread is the traditional food when really it's not. It came from the arrival of settlers when we had the food taken away from us, our natural foods, the foods that we could grow on our own. Those were taken away from us, and we didn't have anything to eat. Therefore, they gave us packages of food, and this included the ingredients of flour, the ingredients to make stuff for fry bread. So there's that misconception of fry bread being a traditional food. And with the onbringing of these different kind of things of westernization, we had a decrease in physical activity. Again, we had different forms of transportation, therefore we didn't walk. We didn't hunt, we didn't gather at this time. there was also an increase in unhealthy habits and diseases and obesity. So making fry bread, we were introduced to grease or to fats, added fats. Making the added fats, eating if you're given the ingredients for fry bread, and that's what came out of those 3 ingredients or the several ingredients that you're given, that's the only thing you're going to be eating, right? So you have fry bread and you're eating fry bread almost every day because that's your form of survival. Therefore, we had the increase of heart diseases and obesity. Obesity again brought on with the decrease of physical activity.
So just like Tanisha said, when the settlers came on, that's when we had an introduction of fry bread or flour. And flour is a processed flour. It was changed in some way. The originality of it is a whole grain, but it was changed, it was bleached, it was turned white, and therefore we got flour. Not only that, we had the introduction of sheep. Navajos, we did not have sheep back then. We did not naturally occur sheep. It wasn't until the settlers came on when it was introduced. And a lot of these stuff, not only was it given to us for survival, we got a lot of it to barter, to trade. There was a lot of things that the settlers wanted from Native Americans or Navajos, so we bartered with each other, we traded. So in return, they gave us processed foods. They gave us sheep. And it wasn't until then, like Tanisha said, that's when we were really introduced to fry bread and mutton. So it's kind of crazy when a lot of Native Americans, especially Navajos, think that fry bread and mutton is a traditional food. It actually is not. Our traditional foods, again, it goes back to pre-settlers. That's a lot of our whole foods, a lot of our indigenous foods, our plant-based foods that we ate from Mother Earth, that Mother Earth provided us with. So being that, pre-settlers, we were very healthy people. Nowadays, a lot of people, they want to be healthy, which is a really great thing, but they use other outlets to try to get to be healthy again. And when I say outlets, I mean diets. Instead of going back to pre-settler phase, they look at fad diets such as cabbage soup diets, a smoothie diet, and other trending diets. Now, these certain kind of diets, they may be great up to a certain extent, but if not done properly, you lose out on a lot of healthy stuff such as essential nutrients, vitamins, and minerals. And a lot of these diets were made for people who were in the hospital. Someone who has high cholesterol or high blood sugar. These diets were made specifically for them. But for whatever reason, everybody wants to do it, and that's why we call them fad diets. So like Tanisha and I had mentioned, with the work we do in the community we work with and the people we talk with and the people we educate, we are really trying to go back to the indigenous way, the cultural way. We are really trying to connect Native Americans back with their culture and their traditions. And by doing so, we're able to revitalize that tradition and that culture and the indigenous eating ways. And revitalization, that basically means we're trying to bring that back. And we're trying to revitalize it because we know that was the only way Native Americans were once healthy. We know that they were disease-free. They didn't have obesity. They didn't have diabetes. They didn't have cancers back then, was because they lived a very healthy lifestyle. And right now, that's what our movement is. We're really trying to educate people on this. And like we had mentioned before, as far as education, we talk about this. We talk about pre-settlers, post-settlers, what the difference is between those. We talk a lot about indigenous foods, and a lot of people aren't sure what their indigenous foods are, so we try to really connect with the community, and we tell them, we've been on forage walks where we show people, this is an edible plant that you can eat. This is, something you can add into your food, and it might be growing right in front of your door or in your yard, your backyard. It's just having that knowledge. And for you to really understand this, you have to really connect back to your culture, your traditions. And this is a good time to go back to your elders, to your mom, to your dad, your grandparents, and ask of these stories, ask them, what did we eat a long time ago? What were our traditional indigenous foods? It wasn't fry bread, obviously. It wasn't mutton. It was something else. What was it? Go take the time to learn that, because for you to truly understand, you have to have that knowledge. And that's what we do a lot of. We're trying to really revitalize that lifestyle, because we know by possibly bringing that lifestyle back, we can have a decrease in obesity, a decrease in diabetes, a decrease in cancers and diseases. And that's what really we're trying to do here.
To kind of just add to what Nicole was saying about the revitalization of the traditional foods, think of it as a way of your culture. So as Native Americans, we associate our culture, our ceremonies, our traditional teachings, we associate that a lot with who we are as far as our identification as a Native American. So going back, it helps to go back and to ask those questions, to find out who you are as far as Native American. Three sisters across all Native American tribes. Those were the three common things that we all had as Native Americans. Native Americans in Alaska may have had a different diet than Southwest Native Americans, but where it's important to know, where you come from, and that's what we really try to do, and that's what our work is, and that's something we're really passionate about, and finding out ourselves as far as educating. So this next part is an example of a Navajo traditional food for us. A common one is Navajo cake. In this case, Navajo cake is usually made during a puberty ceremony for a young female, a young Navajo female. And during this ceremony, it's a four-day ceremony. During this ceremony, the young woman is pretty much being blessed as into womanhood. She has to do many things. She has to display her hard work, and she has to know what it's like to be a young woman. She would have to cook all of her meals. She has to help everybody. During this time, at the very end of the ceremony, the girl and the family, they prepare to make a cake, Navajo ground cake, and this includes 3 ingredients. It's going to be wheat germ, ground corn, and honey. So during this time, the girl will go ahead and she will grind all of her corn, as much of it as needed. As she's grinding, she has a male figure in her life that she wants to look up to. This male figure goes and digs the hole where they will build a fire. The fire will be in there for one whole day and one night. And then when she's done grinding the corn, she will go ahead and mix the corn together with the other ingredients, and then they use a corn husk to line the ground where they're going to be pouring the cake in. So then they do that. They pour the cake in there. They provide songs, or they sing traditional songs as she's doing this. She blesses the corn, and after they're done doing that, they build a fire on top of the corn. The night, her last night in the ceremony, she has to stay up the whole night, and the medicine men will do prayers for her through song. So she's up all night, everyone is singing. The next morning before sun rises, she goes and runs. Again, there's that physical aspect to our culture and our traditions. We use running. In this case, she has to run as far as she can. as far as she can and as long as she can. She is followed by all of her supporters. Everyone is yelling to the holy people to let them know that she is becoming a woman during the ceremony. After the ceremony, after her run, when she returns, she will go ahead and the cake should be done cooked. Should be cooked by that time, and then she will cut the cake up and she will offer it to everybody who had been a part of her ceremony and had helped her during the ceremony. So it is tradition that the Navajo girl, the young female, she does not consume her own cake. And this is just a way to show that she will not be stingy with what she has. And this is one traditional example of what we as Navajos, and there's many other different ways that we tie in with foods, but this is one thing, the Navajo cake, or it's also called brown cake, that we use, and this is the example of that.
So our presentation, we talked a lot about pre-settlers, post-settlers, going back to that healthy lifestyle, revitalization, and Tanisha even gave you an example on a traditional food. So again, we really just encourage you as youth to go back to your elders, to go back to your parents and learn about it, because to truly know what your traditions and your culture once was, you have to understand it. And don't be afraid to go back to that lifestyle. It's, we call it silos, but nobody wants to ever talk about this stuff. Nobody ever wants to say fry bread is not a traditional food. Nobody ever wants to say mutton is not a traditional food. It's something we don't talk about a lot, therefore we do not practice it a lot. And in order for us to truly be healthy in a natural way without the trend diets or the fad diets, is why not go back to how we once were? Why not go back to eating indigenous foods, connecting with our culture, connecting with our traditions? Because when you do that, not only do you become healthy as far as eating, you start to connect with yourself, your soul. You start to connect with your people, and then you learn how to self-love, take care of yourself. It's a lot about well-being. And so we challenge you guys to go back to your families, go back to your tribe, wherever you may come from, and ask, what are your traditional foods? And how do you use those? How can you use those traditional foods to revitalize your cultural traditions? So, ask yourself those questions. Again, we are Native Americans, let's honor that. Let's be happy. Let's be happy to be Native American. And by doing so, you have to practice your culture and your traditions.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to ask these questions. You may find it very surprising that our elderly, they want to tell us these stories. They want to tell us these teachings. They'll be surprised to hear, especially coming from youth. They want to be able to hear the youth's interest in these different things. So don't be afraid to ask these questions. I know there's kind of that stigma of, if you don't know your traditions, how true of a Native American are you? But really, it's just a learning process. You're going to have to go out and find out who you truly are, your true identification as Native American.
And like we said, you never know. You could have some edible indigenous foods in your backyard, in your front yard. But again, we don't really know that until we ask those questions. So we challenge you to do that in hopes that, you become a healthier Native American. We just want to say thank you.
Yeah,
we
thank you.
really appreciate being able to do this presentation for you guys. If you have any questions, we will leave our contact number with the host. And then you guys are more than welcome to reach out to us for anything or any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.